Well, I know that you've lived like on the West Coast and in the South, and then like you went to school in the Midwest, and now you're back living in Middle Tennessee. What brought you back here to the South, or to Nashville in particular?
Well, it was my family. My father worked in engineering, like in software engineering, and so he originally moved us to Nashville the first time when I was really little from California for business, and he thought it was absolutely going to hate it, and he ended up falling in love with it, and so we went back to California when I was in middle school, and then his rule, though, was that he was only going to stay in California 5 years and he was going to come back, so they hauled me back to Tennessee for high school, and that's where I went to a Southern All-Girls preparatory school, which is very different from California. I was in San Jose, so a California public school. So it was definitely an experience. I'm certainly not debutante material, so it was definitely an interesting environment to be in. And then after college, I did a lot of traveling, and I just kind of returned to Nashville on occasion to be close to my family, and it tends to be my home base in the interim when I haven't decided where I'm going to move to next. I'm a little nomadic when it comes to living. I think it's one of the perks of the job that I take the most advantage of, is that I can do it anywhere. Because I was in Liverpool for 3 months working on my next book, and not because the book was set in Liverpool, but just because I had 3 months to write it, and I thought, why not see somewhere else?
There you go.
Yeah.
So now, you were talking about how you went to the All-Girls School, and that I'm actually a fellow All-Girls School alum. And
I saw that, yeah. Where did you go?
I went to Good Counsel High School, okay, which is actually no longer, but it's in Chicago. It was in Chicago. And so I just wondered what your take was, like if you felt like anything really helped form you there, because I remember hearing statistics about all-girls schools, and sometimes I wonder if people actually met up with those statistics. So
well, I'm not sure it ever had that much impact on my writing in terms of the kind of stories that I write, but it had so much impact on my personality and just being, I guess, like headstrong enough that I thought I can do this at a very early age. Because I started writing when I was in high school, and of course it wasn't very good, but I had that level of encouragement, but it wasn't just the kind of the blind encouragement that you sometimes get in public school where the teachers are just happy that you're doing something. My teachers were still hard on me even when I was doing creative writing, and they pushed me, but it was still a very positive, reinforcing environment. And I think one of those things about being in all-girls school is that the obvious, there are no boys, and you don't worry about what boys are going to think about you if you raise your hand. And I just remember getting to college afterwards and being in coeducational classrooms, and the teacher asking a question, and none of the girls in the class would raise their hands because they didn't want to look silly in front of the boys. And that's just not how I was brought up. I was brought up that if you knew the answer, if you had something to say, you made sure that you knew exactly how you wanted to say it, and then you said it. And I think that kind of headstrongness really bled into my writing and my writing ambitions, and I took writing very seriously from a teenager, from a teenage age on into college. And so, I was querying agents as a sophomore in college, and I just didn't really, I don't know, it's that combination of stubbornness. I was very stubborn and very headstrong, and I had a really good work ethic, and I think all of those came out of girls' school. And definitely probably made me the young author that I am. Not necessarily the author, but helped me to succeed at a younger age, probably.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of the things that I was thinking, because I specifically remember I had a professor, Dr. O, and he would, just talk about how he was learning about how people in the other schools weren't excelling because they weren't trying things, and because they were always afraid to make a mistake in front of the boys. Yeah. And so I really do think that that's true, that it really encourages you to be able to be who you are. More
Definitely.
So. Not that you're never going to deal with the peer pressure and those kind of things, but I think that it is a different opportunity. So I was just curious to see what your experience had been.
Yeah,
so.
and I went to a high school where, because the popular girls, it was a very strange situation. I don't know if you had the same experience, but the popular girls at my high school were the ones who managed to juggle everything. Like, they were the academic all-stars, and they were the brilliant, really bright girls. And so it was a very competitive environment, but instead of competing for the boys' attentions, you were competing for the top marks, and you were competing to be the kind of best all-around student. And so it still was that air of competition. I just think that, especially for a teenage girl, it was a bit more positive, or at least constructive, than it might have been had it just been a fight for boys' attention.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
And so what plaid, just for fun, what plaid skirt did you get to sport?
I'm not sure the actual name of it. It was a classic. We called it the Britney Spears outfit because it was like how when she first started and she did like a girl's, like a private school uniform in her first video. I think it was the blue, green, and white. So we got really lucky because another school, I won't like name names, but another school around here has like a purple and red and brown. And it's just, we tease them all the time because at least our skirts were pretty. So we had to wear them year round. We didn't have like a pants option or anything, but at least they were kind of classic blue, green, and white, easy to write on. They had like square checker patterns, and I would just doodle in them.
Yep.
All class long.
Exactly. Yeah, I had the honor of doing my junior and senior year of high school. I had the green and blue with just a really dark navy line through it. So
nice.
That one was nice. The freshman and sophomore year one, not so good. It was just a gray skirt and like a maroon color. So, I mean, I guess it was plain enough, but it was just kind of blah. But,
yeah. They tried to give us other options. Like, we had a lime green skirt, like, that you could wear, but, like, nobody ever wanted to wear the lime green skirt, and so everyone ended up just wearing the proper uniforms because they made the other alternatives so hideous that you just kind of went with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so now back to book stuff as far as being signed to Disney Hyperion, you know, for your first book. I'm sure that was pretty exciting, being a part of the House of Mouse. And what was that like for you?
It's an absolute dream. I have to say, it was really shocking. I fell in love with the editor before I even really knew the house. So, and the thing is, like, I edited Near Witch for 10 and a half months, and over the course of editing, you don't really get to know anyone in your house beyond your editor. So I had to wait a little while to meet the rest of my team at Disney Hyperion. All I had was Abby, my editor, who is seriously, I mean, literally was one of my dream editors. So to get to work with her was incredible. But I had this umbrella over me the whole time, the Mouse House. I was so happy to hear you refer to it. Like, House of Mouse is like our insider term for it. We talk about our Mouse House love. But so I had this kind of like the Disney blanket over my shoulders, but I never really got to see the Disney machine. And then when we got to Beyond Edits and we got to publicity and promotion, and I got to meet my publicist and I got to meet the marketing team, I got to fly up there and meet the whole crew, and it is just so awe-inspiring. And as you said, like, I'm young and it's my first book, and to get to be with such a wonderful house that is so supportive towards all of their authors. They have a small list. It's a non-competition model so that they only have one style of each book at any given time so that their authors aren't competing directly with one another. I love their ethics, and I love the way that they behave as a house towards their authors and towards each other, and I'm seriously delighted to be there. I'm so excited that I get to do more books with them.
That's great. Yeah, just every experience that we've had, just, you know, with this book, even just they were really good to work with, and just even anything that we've done, like even when we went into vacation, we did our honeymoon at Disney World, and I mean, just the relations that they build are just great. So
they're wonderful. I tease that they gave me two publicists because I'm a little high maintenance, or at least I get stressed easily. So you've gotten to work with both of them, I think, with Jamie and Haley. But they're both really great people. They put up with me. I suffer from an extreme case of curiosity in that I'm completely naive in terms of how publishing works, but I'm very eager to learn everything. So I bombard my publisher with questions probably every single day, and they have just been so tolerant of that curiosity. I blame the Allgirls School on that too, that love of learning. But they're good to me.
Now, okay, I know that you have been asked this like a million times, but who would you say have influenced you in your writing style?
Okay, well, I always say that I grew up with Shel Silverstein, and my parents forced him on me from a very young age. I don't want to say forced, like forced in the most positive way possible, and they made him so available. And I joke that from the ages 5 to 13, I literally thought in that rhyme and rhythm, and I would have to kind of break the rhymes in my head before I spoke so people wouldn't think I was crazy. But it just made rhythm such a natural thing to me. I just hear words in that kind of order and with that kind of flow, and it makes writing that way very easy for me. And then as I got older, I fell in love with Neil Gaiman, and he obviously he writes for the whole spectrum from children's all the way up through adults. I fell in love with his adult work first, and there's just this oddness to him when he writes. There's this wonderful strange strangest, and the only way I can think to describe it is you get the sense that when he's writing, he is never thinking about where on the shelf it's going to go. He just doesn't concern himself with fitting into any structure. It's simply about telling the story. And he takes the real world and he just twists it a little bit, and I love those. I love it when we get magical realism, or whenever we get the paranormal or the supernatural overlapping in some way with the real. And it's the kind of writing that I want to do, which it kind of makes you look around at the world around you and wonder if there was magic there all along and you just weren't paying enough attention. And he's always been that author that makes me think that way. And so I love that oddness, and I want to be able to do it, and I look up to him immensely for it. So it's like kind of a strange combination of things like Shel Silverstein and Neil Gaiman, but the two of them put together, they're just a little warped and a little morbid and just very beautiful. So, and I think those are probably the two more than anything.
Oh, fun. Now, one thing how we were talking about, the books that would be more prone for a guy to pick up, and that one that we particularly really liked was the Hunger Games series.
Yeah.
And have you read those?
I did. I absolutely love them, and it's always and Lexi and Ren, they get compared a lot to Katniss and Prim, and it's hysterical because I totally see it. But I didn't pick up the Hunger Games until after I had turned in, I think, my first round of edits on Mirror Witch, and so I love seeing that comparison. I call Lexi my tempered Katniss because I want her to be a total badass, but I also want her to fit her fairy tale world. And so I didn't want to push her to the point where she was no longer believable within the world that I had created for her. Mm-hmm. But I am such a huge fan of the Hunger Games, not only in the way that I'm a huge fan of all young adult literature that manages to pull people beyond young adults in, but I just find those worlds, and the way that Suzanne Collins does it, absolutely devourable. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, we just kept noticing, there was things about fire, and the council, was, and just different things that we just kept tying it, and we never thought that was, intended, but we just thought how interesting that was, that, it kind of had that flow, so.
Yeah, I mean, and it's always, I do so much reading in young adult, kind of as, I see it as part of my job, is to be informed about what's come out and what's coming out, and I always love kind of seeing when things intentionally or unintentionally either pay homage to or weave back in with existing trends or where things sync up. And so that's one of those cases for me where I love it. It was completely unintentional, but I love that. I mean, two things that I see as so incredibly separate: a fairy tale and the Hunger Games, how they have moments of intersection. So I think it's cool.
Now, you've said that you really like, writing and reading about things that are kind of in the in-between, just the thing with a little bit of a supernatural twist, if you will. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that appeals to you the most? What is it that just draws you into that?
I think as I said before, it's that possibility. It's that weird space where you think maybe I just haven't been paying attention and it's actually real. Anything that makes me question my surroundings or question my reality, I don't know. I'm one of those, I will say I have a Peter Pan complex. I have a little bit of trouble growing up, and I don't see that as a bad thing. But I'm very whimsically minded, we'll say, and I kind of love the notion that there is magic, or there is something that we simply haven't noticed. And so I think that working in that gray zone really lends itself to that. It lends itself to question, and anything that makes you question your reality, in my opinion, is a fabulous thing, because it means that you're truly being transported. For as long as you're reading that book, you are no longer in your absolute world. You're kind of bleeding over into the fiction. And I think that's pretty much, for me personally, the highest thing that I would want to attain in terms of a skill, in terms of what I could do to readers, would be to one day be able to write in such a way that my readers question the world that they've been living in all this time in favor of the world that they've just entered in a book.